Good evening, I'm the Friendly Senpai, and today we are going to be talking about a hentai visual novel by Liquid titled My Sex Slave is a Classmate. It was initially released in Japanese in 2003, but Manga Gamer published an English translated version in 2008, so if you are interested in checking it out, I will have a link in the description below. Starring Masato Kirishima as our main character, My Sex Slave is a Classmate tells the tale of a high schooler whose hotshot CEO father dies, leaving him as a sole heir to their vast conglomerate. Man, that word just crashed and burned. However, everything does come with a price. In order to be approved by the board of directors to become the CEO, Masato must acquire himself a sex slave and train her in the 2 weeks he is allotted. Alright, so as you can imagine, this did not have the most solid story. The entire setting is shoved in your face within the first couple of minutes, with the actual game starting out with, "My father died." And then we're being introduced to the MC's father's secretary, who actually ended up being his father's actual sex slave. And not only are we blindsided, but so is Masato, because apparently he had no idea any of this was going on, even though it's tradition, which is miserable, lazy writing. Ignoring how absolutely ludicrous it would be for a company to be requiring a teenaged boy to acquire a sex slave for himself, the way that the scene is set is just absolute garbage. Before you're even given a chance to recover from the way that the introduction left you kind of reeling, you're already being introduced to a third character who is apparently the first candidate to becoming your slave. There is a sort of middle part to the game that I actually found to be quite decent. Not good, but it was decent. It interested me. I have calyx everywhere, so it's kind of hard to keep it all going in the same direction. Once you become adjusted to the game's atmosphere, and once you familiarize yourself with the way that the sex scenes are presented, Masato is introduced to other girls who, for lack of a better word, are potentials. Should you decide to not pay as much attention to Saori as she would desire, you can begin to fixate on another character such as Ayane. Ayane is your tsundere classmate who is convinced that you are a sexual menace despite you being a virgin, and Masato decides to show her how painfully correct she actually is. Once you are introduced to her, you are introduced to her younger sister, Miku. Once you meet all three girls, you're actually given a variety of options that will lead you down one of the 4-ish paths. Those paths all have unlockable scenes where in order to get them all, you do need to play the game multiple times. And each route has multiple endings for a total of, I believe, 10. The part that I found intriguing, though, is how each path has its own theme. I'm not saying that they have their own storylines, because saying that this game has any semblance of a story is honestly a massive insult to legitimate visual novels. But there are recurring themes in each route that don't show up in others. Saori's path is full of what is called consensual kink, and it features a lot of voyeurism and is really the closest representation of a genuine master-slave relationship. I mean, Masato would make a really shitty dominant and frequently toes the line between being dominant and domineering, but I digress. Ayane's route, however, encompasses blackmail and features a fair amount of fetishes that are generally frowned upon, such as pet play and water sports. While Saori goes into the arrangement willing and eager, Ayane's path is more a story of breaking down someone into admitting that they enjoy being humiliated and being treated as a slave. And there are actually 2 routes where you can play with more than one potential. Ayane's and Saori's shared path features a lot of uninspired threesome scenes, whereas Ayane's and Miku's path focuses on the taboo that comes with watching your sibling get the D, or multiple Ds, or the D with you. That being said, Miku's story is wildly different from the rest in the sense that she wants to protect her sister from Masato's sexual advances. Hers features a lot of rape. So much rape. Of different kinds, with many aggressors. Which leads me to wonder, where is Masato getting this endless supply of classmates that are all willing to sexually assault Miku and in some cases the rest of the class? I meant to say cast, but class happened. Sexually assaulting the cast. I assume it would be a little more difficult than just asking, but they never really explain it. I also have to question why the writers made Masato go from this clueless virgin that is for the most part very kind, into this tyrannical asshole that manipulates and threatens and forces his classmates into getting on his dick in the span of 2 weeks. That is an insane transformation. Out of left field, we're going to be wrapping up the segment by talking about the translation, which, assuming editing senpai put it in the video at some point, you may have already gotten a taste for. My biggest complaint is how a lot of the words were just kind of smushed together. It was a constant problem throughout the game, and I really would like to know what goes into localizing a game, because it seems like it would be a very simple fix. Like, you know, just pressing the space bar. I mean, Sex Slave did suffer a very lousy, mediocre English translation that a lot of hentais see, but that was a lot less distracting than just having a bunch of words and letters being jumbled together. And on that note, the narrative frequently swapped between a past tense and present tense style of writing. I have no idea why. I'm assuming this is another translation issue that we wouldn't be seeing if we were actually playing the original Japanese version. Does anyone remember when Gaia Online was a thing? The artwork in My Sex Slave as a Classmate is the same kind of art you would see in the role-playing forums. Did anyone else do that? I will admit it, I still do online text-based role-playing. But seriously, you could definitely see that the art was created in the early 2000s just in the kind of slanted eyes and the crazy bangs. And that's not to say it's bad, because it's not. The artwork in Sex Slave serves as a direct contrast to the very boorish story by providing the player with a variety of character designs that are perfect representations of their personalities. Most of my praise can be boiled down to the attention to detail, which I'm sure most of you saw this coming by this point. Despite there being approximately 100 unlockable CGs, each scene showed an unchanging level of quality that you would expect from a very skilled artist. I mean, just in the hair itself, we see a metric fuck ton. Just in the hair itself, we see a metric fuck ton of individual locks that each have their own direction and flow, and there are just enough highlights for each character's hair to look glossy, but not tackily so. Even if the laws of physics maybe didn't apply to a lot of the scenes. Just like the hair, every article of clothing presented in the game was consistently well created. To the soft pleats and Saori's skirt, to the stretched elastic of Ayane's panties, to the way the uniform ribbon hangs over Miku's chest, clothing featured in Sex Slave has adequate folds and textures that make the way they hang off the characters' bodies feel natural and organic. So, even if we don't have a slew of character sprites and expressions to make things very interesting, what we're given makes up for the lack of diversity. However, I do not understand why it is so goddamn difficult for artists to draw genitals. In no two scenes did Masato's dick look the same. Sometimes it was detailed and veiny, sometimes the artist forgot to color the tip pink, and sometimes we got that weird phantom penis that always perplexed me. I wish I could show you, but that's a good way to get banned from YouTube. Just why is it so difficult for people to get the human body correct? You are creating porn. Why are you skimping on the selling point of your game? Also, that font. And there were a lot of blank black screens where CGs could have been put, like in quite a few of the endings. So, in short, while I didn't necessarily enjoy My Sex Slave as a Classmate, I found it interesting and intriguing enough to go back and play this multiple times to get about half of the endings. I couldn't really bring myself to play through it to get all the endings because it seemed like you need to pick a very specific order of the selections given, and nobody got time for that. But it was interesting to play through the different story paths and experience their different themes, and it was fun to unlock new scenes, but it had a lot of flaws. Namely, the lack of story and the OST. Oh my god, this game featured the weirdest fucking soundtrack I have ever heard in a hentai game. They played some like weird, creepy, dungeon medieval music during the sex scenes, and really it was the music you would expect for a demon boss battle at the end of a fantasy horror game, so I don't know why they put it in. Anyways, those are my thoughts on My Sex Slave as a Classmate. Have you played it? If you have, out of the themes presented, which one appealed to you the most? Mine was probably the DS dynamic with Salary. But let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, you can find all of my social media as well as my Patreon in the description. Happy unbirthday, and I will see you later. Bye!